I am your trusty moderator today. Stacy London is terribly sick and sorry that she couldn't join us. And I know that she would be here in a heartbeat to support you if she was able to get out of bed. So um, I'm happy. I'm thrilled to be able to pitch in to have this conversation. I come at this conversation as a total kind of as a total outsider because I came up in the era of like don't talk about menopause, right? Like don't even I asked my mom recently, I was like, like talk to me about menopause. She was like, I don't know. What do you want to know? She was like, it like just happened. And like
Yeah.
she didn't even have any, I was like, where's the intel? Where's the knowledge? Right. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago when my beloved Gen Xers started to go through menopause that we started to even be able to have a conversation because the generation before us did not talk about it, right?
Right.
It was like, don't say menopause, don't say menopause, like
La,
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 la.
la, la, la. And now, and as you know now, like millennials are having perimenopause and jumping, I feel like jumping on our Gen X bandwagon.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
um, and I come from this place as I'm solidly Gen X, and yet at the same time, I spent my career being an ambassador, a champion, an expert in millennials and next generation. And I do think that some of what millennials have led of a greater transparency and authenticity and like despite the fact that millennials gave us Instagram filters, like they're now like we're doing it's hashtag unfiltered, like that opens us up to have a substantive conversation about how to menopause.
Yeah, I'm so happy about it too, and I'm thrilled to see young women having this conversation. I love it. Like I'm excited to see young women coming into this time in life knowing what to expect. And so
Yeah.
I was like, well, we don't have what to expect when you're, expecting menopause or perimenopause. So I was like, we're going to do a how-to book. That's what our generation likes is how to. And when I set out to write the book, I really set out to write the book so women could feel empowered with information and they could feel like they knew something. So when they go into a doctor who might not have the information, they could either be informed that they needed to find a doctor that does, or educate and share with the doctor what they're dealing with and what possible options they want to be offered.
It's this is such a good, important book, and I'm so glad that you're getting the visibility that you deserve. Let me set up the conversation. It looks like we've got a fuller room now, and I'll keep letting people in.
Great.
Um, I am your trusty moderator, and I happen to be Anne Choquette, CEO of The List. For any of you here who don't know me, to all the listers, hello, hello. Um, I am thrilled to host this conversation to help Tamsen, who is a member of The List, bring this book into the world. It's such an important conversation. Tamsen, so I don't think I've told you this, but I saw you on stage a couple of years ago. Maybe it was with Stacy London when she did her big menopause summit. But I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, that woman is amazing. And I actually saw you again when we did Margaret in menopause, right? About
Oh,
Are You
yeah.
There, God? It's Me,
Are you there?
Margaret. And
God,
that
it's me in
Margaret,
menopause.
yeah, that Margaret would be in menopause. And so
Yeah.
you I know you as a menopause advocate, as a midlife advocate, as a demystifier, but your background brings you to this place with a specific set of skills. Will you set up for everyone like who you are, how you got here, and then I'll cue you into talking about like your menopause journey. But give us your background, like where, like how do we know you? How do we love you?
Yeah. Oh, well, I spent 20, well, 30, I don't know. I lose track of the numbers now. Years in news. That's where I came from. I was a news anchor in New York City. Anyone from New York City at WPIX and WCBS. So hi Julia. And so I was there for about 15 years at WPIX, anchoring the morning and then the evening news. And Yeah, that's what I did. I told stories. I woke New York City up in the morning, put them to bed at night, and that's where I came from. I've always enjoyed storytelling. I've always enjoyed change that comes with stories and being able to incorporate change, whether it's in a community or helping somebody that might not have a platform to be able to talk. And the news has done that for a very long time. So that's where I came from originally, and
And
all this
and with
happened
a real
about
curiosity, right? Like you're asking the
Victoria.
questions, what is this about? Why is this matter, right? And being a um an advocate for an audience, right? A window into a new world for an audience. That's a really special skill.
Thank you. Well, it's something I love doing every day. I love that every day was different. And I think that we learn through storytelling. I think we see ourselves in other people's stories. I think we can learn from that. And I have I've seen so much change as a result of it. So I always have gotten excited about interviewing. It's my favorite thing to do, and teaching people as a result of, of what I've learned through interviews. So this next phase in life happened really accidentally. It definitely was not a plan when I was 25, 25 or 35 years old.
Yeah,
Uh,
tell that story. Tell the you open your book with this really amazing personal story, but tell us the story of um like the first on-camera hot flash.
yeah, I didn't even know it was a hot flash. I didn't know what was going on. It was 2019, and I did the evening news, as I said, and I have to say, like looking back, I had all these weird symptoms, but I thought they were stress related from my divorce, and I just in work and blah blah blah, and a relationship. I didn't know what was going on. But this one particular night, I was anchoring the news, and we had gone to a commercial break, and in that commercial break, I started getting this intense like heat, like my whole body, and it wouldn't stop, and I just started having a sweat come here and on my scalp and my boobs everywhere, and I was like, what is going on? And then my heart is racing out of control. And I thought, I can't calm myself down. Like I'm not, I've been on the air for a long time, and I nervous. I didn't get nervous anymore. If something odd happened, maybe, but I just nervous wasn't, I knew it wasn't nerves. Um, and I was like, I have to get off the set. So I got off the set. I left the live broadcast. Somebody helped me off, and I went to the women's room and just went down to the floor to just kind of calm my entire body down. And I got up about 15, 20 minutes later, and didn't finish the broadcast that night. And I started like the following week, I'm like, I have to go see what's going on. Is there a blood issue? Is it a heart issue? Like that's what was in my head. And I wound up going to an endocrinologist. I wound up going to one person that said, like, you should do Lexapro. Maybe you're like anxious. As you get older, you get anxious. Um, and I wound up going to an endocrinologist. Then my OB got the test results, and in my patient portal, it said, in menopause, dot, 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 any questions after the blood panel came back from the endocrinologist. And that was it. And I was like, how could I be in menopause? I'm 49, which of
Yeah.
course now the average age is 51. So of course I could be in menopause, but I had no idea. I lost my mom when she was 51 years old and I was 20. So it was never a conversation I had had with her. She died of breast cancer. And so when I found that diagnosis out, I was like, I can't even believe that this is like, I'm in this, whatever this is. And so I set out to ask a bunch of questions. And when I look back and I remember that the text was in menopause, any questions? I'm like, oh my gosh, that's all I've been doing for 5 years is asking questions as a result. But there's a lot of like embarrassment and shame wrapped up in that. I felt like really weak at work, and I was in a studio of all men, like two men are looking over me like, what's wrong with her? And so, and now I thought my story was unique, and I realized it was not even close to being unique. So many women have gone through the exact same thing. And I just couldn't understand for the life of me how none of us knew what was going on, what to expect, and how we haven't talked about it. I just couldn't understand that. And that started like 5 years ago, that conversation in my head. And then I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop asking questions.
Yeah. Well, so and the chat is all full of women talking about their first hot flash also, like
Oh, yeah.
this overwhelming feeling of like what is going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Um,
scary. It's scary when
yeah.
the body does something that it's never done before, and you don't have control of it, And I think look, I don't know if I had known that, oh, this is a hot flash, I'm totally fine. But I don't. it was like it was all these things combined, my heart racing out of control, like all those things that were happening. And it can be debilitating. It really can. It does, as somebody wrote, it feels very similar to an anxiety attack. And I had never dealt with anything like that before. So it was really shocking to me, but more shocking to me that all of us are dealing with the same things and had never talked about it or heard about it.
The your instinct to say like not me, I'm not in menopause, right? When you said you read that message.
Yeah.
I think that that goes to this idea that there's still, I think still
Yeah.
quite a lot of misconception, but also shame, right? That like your vitality is over, your useful, you can't have babies anymore, your
Yeah.
usefulness is over,
Yeah.
right? That
That
you,
years are behind us, you know.
yes.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that, what you've encountered with that bias and like what you've learned in your research that sort of will give us all a little bit of hope that that that's
Oh,
not the case.
well, have a lot of hope, first of all, because I've learned so much. But yeah, I encountered that bias. I had a meeting like maybe it was a year and a half later with a friend of mine, and I was meeting a group of women at a restaurant, and she knew I had started talking about perimenopause, menopause, and she goes, before we walked in, she goes, listen, please don't talk about menopause at this dinner, okay? Just don't bring that up because that's kind of like nobody wants to hear about that. And I said, "What? What?" And literally by the end of it, and not even to be mean, but somebody had brought it up to me, and I'm like, I'm not going to not answer the question. And so then the whole dinner conversation was monopolized by menopause, and I was like secretly so happy about it because I thought, how can you say don't bring some of this up and it's embarrassing? There's a lot of bias about it, and I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. I'm hopeful that we make enough noise that we kind of muffle that bias, but it's been wrapped up in ageism for a long time. It's wrapped up in, if you are past your reproductive years, what use are you? And it's not like that in every culture, but it certainly is like that from what I have seen. And so that's why I think that is important, socially and culturally in terms of this conversation so that women don't feel like they hear the word menopause and go, ew, I can't believe that's where I am right now. And instead feel like, wow, this is another normal thing that my body does, which is really amazing. And by the way, these are some of the best years ever. And it really is why I wrote a couple of chapters in the end of the book to talk about what happens outside the doctor's office too, because menopause is actually an emotional thing along with a physical thing. And I think we come into some really incredible gifts and years and magic in this part of our life. And I didn't want to leave that out. I didn't want this to be this book of, oh, here's all your symptoms. Good luck. I wanted it to be, here's what happens, here's some solutions, and here's how it gets even better.
Talk about the magic. I want to hear more about the magic. What is some of this change like unlock for you in your
Yeah.
body or in
I
your
I I I think and look, I want to be the first to say that I didn't come into it going like I'm going to find the magic of menopause. Like that was not, that was not the thing. But I have found that I know who I am now. Like I have discovered a different side of my confidence. I understand, what I want. I understand purpose. I found different meaning. I got married at 50 in menopause. I was like a menopausal bride and like it was pretty cool. But I did find that I care and love my, family and community and friends, but I also know that I have got to take care of myself. And I know that has to come there. And I never thought that before. I thought I could get by on little sleep. I thought I could kick the can down the line and take my care of myself as a luxury. I didn't understand how important lifestyle and stress management were and thought that I could just keep beating my body up and it would be okay. I've also learned that, when we come on the other side of this, there's this kind of U-shaped curve of, where you are before menopause, then you hit perimenopause when your hormones are kind of, down here, and you sort of come out this other side. Lisa Mosconi is a neuroscientist that I actually had just done an Instagram live with, and we talked about this U-shaped curve where you come out the other side, and it has shown in research that postmenopausal women are even happier than they were pre-menopausal or pre-perimenopausal. And so I found a lot of that, and it took a long time. It didn't happen overnight, but I have found a freedom with releasing the timelines of I got to get married, I got to do this, I got to do that. I don't have those timelines anymore. I'm 54. I've lived 3 years past my mother did, and I think every one of those days I am so grateful for because I know she didn't get to see them and I didn't have a roadmap for them. And
Yeah.
so I do find some real magic in it.
Um, Thank you for sharing that about your mother. I
Oh,
actually, the if when you buy your copy, and I put a link in the chat for everybody, but I actually you brought up your mother, and I want to just um, you dedicated this book to your mom, and I thought it was so special. I read it this morning. This she says to my mother, Libby Ann Fadal. Can I read it?
yeah, of
Okay.
course. Of course.
We didn't know medical menopause after treatment for breast cancer was the reason you would get so hot at restaurants or spend nights unable to sleep. Now I understand that every time you tried to laugh it off, inside you were probably feeling ashamed and embarrassed and wondering why this was happening to you. My heart hurts when I think of it. I'm so sorry. And then this sentence really got me. I have committed my voice to making sure no woman feels that alone again. And then it ends with everlasting love, Tamsen. But um, I think that is so special and beautiful, and your mother's legacy, right? That this book is your mother's legacy and living on, and also the idea that um, we are alone in a lot, or have been alone in a lot of ways in this change in our lives, and um, that the togetherness that you are creating around this book is what is going to be game changing. Look at all these amazing women in the room.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um, um,
I'm really,
uh, really special. Talk a
thank you.
little bit, will you talk a little bit about that mission, about wanting to bring women together and what you're doing? Like I know you're just at the beginning of your journey with this book, but will you talk a little bit more about the pieces of the journey and maybe share how we can support you?
Yeah, yeah, thank you. My mom, she had breast cancer. She had a double mastectomy. And when she was going through chemo and everything, she would just break out into a sweat. And like we couldn't go into restaurants or we'd have to leave a restaurant. She was hot all the time. She always had water. She was like trying to put ice on herself. And she would laugh about it, be like, oh, it was so hot. And it would become this like running joke. I had no idea until about 3 years ago when I started understanding medical menopause and how you instantly go into it and what it means and surgical menopause. I don't know that she ever knew. I
Yeah.
actually don't know. I don't know that a doctor ever told her what happened. I've talked to so many women that have said to me, like, I wound up going into a medical menopause and they never told me that was going to happen right away. And so I realized that a few years ago and it made me really sad. Like I had about a week where I just was like, I can't even, like, it was deep, like very unresolved, like I couldn't believe that it was something I didn't know from all those years ago. When she passed. And so I look at the community and the people around me as something that's really lifted me up in a lot of ways and given me a lot of strength. And so I guess, if there's anything that you can do to share that is what you've gone through in terms of your story, if there's anything that you can really understand in terms of what your symptoms are, so you go deal with this starting at 35, you're not waiting till 45 or 55 for a doctor to bring that up to you. If you can take control of that narrative within your own community. I have a friend that started the Hottie Hotline with her friends on a thread on a text. And the Hottie Hotline is all the friends that are going through perimenopause and menopause. They share their symptoms, they share their doctors, they share their everything to help each other go through it. And I think it's super, super special. So I think that's super important. And I also have to say that, a lot of doctors have not been trained in this. I did a whole section called What Your Doctor Doesn't Know Could Hurt You. And it's not the doctor's fault. They were not trained in medical school by their own admission. I've talked to urologists, I've talked to OBGYNs, I've talked to cardiologists, I've talked to neuroscientists. And so it's really important that the women take control of their narrative and understand what's going on so they can understand, first of all, if they have a doctor that they can talk to and will listen and understand and give them solutions. And second of all, not be afraid to walk out if they do not have a doctor that can understand and listen. If a doctor's telling you this is just a normal thing that happens with age, this happens to all women, if your symptoms aren't bad enough, then you don't need to consider hormone therapy or other non-hormonal options. That is not a doctor you should be with, because it's not about hot flashes today and brain fog. It's about long-term health that you need to be looking at. And that long-term health is brain health and bone health and heart health. And that's what we need to be thinking about right now, so that when we're talking about a health span, we're talking about a healthier health span.
I love that you said that because so often we get so fixated on like vagina and uterus when we're talking about menopause and those changes, but that you to really put a point on it that you're talking about heart health and brain health and bone health and all of your sustainable your like the things that are going to sustain you into the rest of your life.
Yes.
Um, Talk a little bit more about the workplace because I'm so curious about how menopause is playing out in the workplace. And one of the most fascinating conversations we ever had with the list was one of our members who was very senior in corporate was talking about like the way we're going to keep women rising in the workplace is like
Mhm.
normalizing having a thermostat on the wall so that when you walk into the meeting that you're going to run, you can turn down the temperature, right? About having a
Yes.
fan, about
Yes.
making the bathrooms
Yes.
menopause friendly. And I thought like, okay, that sounds like a good start, right? But that there's a lot of other pieces of um, ensuring your success, your career success into the next stage of your life, starting with demystifying menopause.
Yeah.
Um, and as you were thinking through not only the health impacts, but talk a little bit more about what we could or should be thinking about in our own workplaces and in our own careers through this transition moment.
Yeah, you know what? Workplace became very, very important to me. I was at the television station and I had gone in there asking them about workplace initiatives, and nobody even knew what that was at that time. They were like, what menopause in the workplace? I don't even know what we're talking about. Now we're seeing more companies stand up and say, yes, we are wanting to do workplace policies, wanting to help give women access, wanting to help, with benefits, but it's still not enough. We don't have enough of those workplaces doing that. And we have a lot of different kind of workplaces. And so I would encourage anybody who feels that they're in a position that they can do that, or they feel like they've got a group of women that they can go in there with, to talk to HR about those things, because it's going to happen. And it's a matter of time. I really, truly believe that, but it's going to happen with all of our voices. It's got to happen with all of our voices demanding kind of change and help, even if it's so much as getting information or starting a conversation or having coaches come in or workshops come in. I got a phone call this morning from a hotel, and they said, can you come in and talk to our employees? And I was like, yes, tell me when, because I think that we're going to all need to do those kind of things going forward. But with workplace, we've seen all sorts of different changes, which could be changes in a uniform, changes in allowing fans to be at the desk, or providing fans, not allowing, but providing fans to be at the desk, providing maybe a telehealth company that comes with your benefits, providing coverage. So if you're going to be treated, that you've got somebody that can treat you, even if it's a coaching aspect of menopause. So those are some of the changes we're seeing. And then we have, deeper ones that cost a little bit more money, but flexibility in days. And so it's interesting to see. I wish it were happening very, very quickly. Daisy saying women CEOs should jump on this. Agreed. Amen. Like yesterday, we need to do that. And I think, look, I don't think any of it's easy, because I think we're paving a whole new path, and there's going to be a lot of pushback, but it's the right thing. And in 2 to 5 years, I see a big change. We did a documentary, The M Factor, and I was told that there was no funding or money for it, and there was a small niche audience for it, and people didn't want to air that. 1 billion women,
Yeah.
51% of the population is women, but 1 billion women are in menopause right now, or in this transition. We're not a niche audience. And so
Yeah.
I really understand the door slammed in the face and the pushback, but the only way that we're going to get that help is to keep going together. So if anybody needs help in, offline of this and wants support in what to talk to workplaces about or help or whatever it is, obviously there's a lot of stuff in the book, but I am really all on board and I'll help you get whatever you need to do that.
I was just, as you were talking, I was just looking around my desk for my fan, which I
Oh,
clearly have moved for this conversation. But I was like, those, that's in my like starter pack. I
good.
want to open up the conversation to questions. And so I guess everybody just raise your hand, I think is the best way to do that since I'm both your moderator and your assistant on this chat. And so while people are like formulating their questions and putting their hands up, um, talk about what most surprised you. Like, what was the thing in this book in researching? Because I love how you're like, I just had to ask questions. Like, it's been 4 years of asking questions. Or 6 years of asking questions. What surprised you the most?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was most surprised by the lack of information that doctors had. And I was also most surprised by how much confusion we all have as a result. And the fact that some of that confusion is based on so much misinformation and the media. And I was part of the media for a long time. It was never corrected. It was never pushed back out there the right way. It never caught wind, like we look, we see pictures of youth in the media, we see all sorts of things. Like we've done a disservice to women at this age by not highlighting them, showcasing them, pushing them forward, showing, how incredible we are in this transition. And we do ourselves a disservice and we do our younger people a disservice too. And so I feel like I spent that much time in the media and now I'm going to work really hard to correct that and make sure that I'm sharing those stories everywhere I can.
I love that so much. And as I was thinking about this book and this stage of life, um, I was editor in chief of 17 magazine, and among all of the things I did, but one of the things that I did was stop having period stories in the embarrassing moments because I didn't
Yeah.
want, like,
Yes.
everybody knows the like embarrassing story. And then my dog found the tampon in the trash, or then I bled through my white jeans. Like, I
Yes.
cut all of those stories out because I didn't want to perpetuate the idea that your period should be embarrassing. And
Yes.
so I feel like there's a new moment where we have to stop talking about the embarrassment of menopause and you're right, highlight positive game-changing stories
Yes.
and talk
Yeah.
about talk about it from a positive place. Understood. One of the best stories we ever did at 17, highest rated stories, was like how to have a happier period. I feel like we need to have how to have a happier menopause now. This is
I
like a
I
new
love that.
generation.
I
Um,
love that. I think it's very real. And I also think, I also want women to not feel embarrassed to talk to their girlfriends about it. I know a few have said to me, like, oh, my girlfriends like don't want to have that conversation because they don't even want to go there. And I know that's not easy. So I would encourage you to find people that will have that conversation with you. I'm also trying to get the book into communities that don't have access because it's very, very important for me. And so we have books online to donate, like if people want to buy a book and donate a book, and we're giving them to a lot of different organizations. We've got different women's groups out there to give them to, because I don't want information to have any kind of barriers to that. So we've donated a bunch of our books ourselves from different corporations. Some women are doing like buying one and getting one, buying one for another woman. And so I just think that we can't do this without getting those everywhere. And it's been really important to see the change in communities, because I think that's where that information happens. We saw it with the documentary. I'm hoping, we can do the same thing with the book, but we handed out the documentary, women brought it into their community, and then they would have theaters of like 200 to 300 women come together and have conversations. And that's where it all starts. When women feel safe and comfortable having conversations, that makes all the difference in the world. We make change. I have no question
I
about
did it wrong. Hold on.
um, so
question.
um, I love what you said about buying a book for someone else and getting books into communities where they don't have access. And so because this is an amazing community here of doers and access and intel. I know that we can help you along that journey of getting the book seen. Um, I also put a link in the chat for anybody who wants to buy a book, buy one for a friend. I was just at an event the other day, and one of the women raised her hand and she said, buy one for yourself, one for a friend, and one to leave behind at the doctor's
Oh,
office, at a coffee shop, right?
that's great.
So that you, Tamsen Fadal, get your book on more bestseller lists,
Thank you.
and we continue to spread the word and the message. So I put that chat I put that in the chat. Um,
So
I'm
much.
I'm gonna look in the chat. Are there questions here in the chat? Are people are normalizing talking about menopause? Yes, yes, yes. Um, Denora loves the hottie hots. Yes, you need to create a chat like that.
Fun.
Tammy, what are all the chats called? What are all your like group chats called? I feel like they must all have good names.
Oh, I know. I don't have, I had, well, they give me the hottie hotlines. That's what we did. We had a party called the World's Hottest Menopause Party, March the 1st. And I wanted to make sure that women had access. It was a free party. And we had women all over the world. We had 62,000 opt-ins to this party. And we just set the stage and we had doctors come out. Stacy London was there. She did a makeover on two women in menopause. We had Mally Roncal come out and do makeup. My 85-year-old dad was there, like singing along. And so we're going to do that again. I think we're going to do it in the spring. So just stay tuned for it. But we that's where the hottie hotline came from. So we had women coming in, talking to the chat, writing in doctors' questions. So yeah, if you guys have any questions for me, I'm open and happy to answer them. I see like some of these OBGYNs and asking whether or not, they're bringing it up or not bringing it up. I just want you guys to know that if you're like in your late 30s, early 40s, and you're dealing with any of those symptoms that are in the book, and I think it's like there's like 34 plus symptoms, it's really like 100 plus because of estrogen receptors all over our body. But you're in that stage, and maybe you mark off five of those symptoms. Most likely you're in perimenopause. You don't need a blood test to tell you that. This is diagnosed by your symptoms. And so be aware of that. And just know that there are solutions that you can start then. You do not have to wait until you're 12 months without your period. You do not have to suffer. And that's probably the most important message that I have is that you don't have to suffer in this time period. There's no magic pill. Anybody that tells you that there's a super magic formula for menopause, there is not. There are hormonal and non-hormonal options and lifestyle. And those are the things. So you don't have to go spend tons of money on everybody's perfect solution. There are some great supplements that I think out there that work, but there's no magic pill for it. But you do need to know those facts. So that's really what I wanted the book to be, so women can have a guide, and so if they're not sleeping one day, then go to that chapter. If they feel like they need to figure out a nutrition plan, go to that chapter. And the experts that I interviewed for the book were so generous with their time and helping with sleep and helping with sex questions and everything. So it's been, it's pretty remarkable what women do when they come together.
Daisy has a question in the chat here, which I think is really a good segue into the next couple of minutes. I'm curious what you think about the recently emerging cottage industry on menopausal products, especially from celebrities, as in non-doctors.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think there are some products out there that are great products. I don't think it's about whether it's a celebrity or a doctor. I do think there's no one size fits all for women, and I do think there's no magic formula. So I do know there's no magic formula. And so I would just try to be reassured and look at ingredients and make sure it's not over promising something. If we're talking about something that's magnesium to help you sleep, vitamin D, some of those kind of fiber, collagen, those are some of the kind of things. If it's something that says this is the menopause pill that's going to fix all 400 of your symptoms, I think you can pass on that and get yourself a nice facial instead. I mean, really, that's not the answer, but look, some of the celebrities have done incredible hair care lines, or they're helping with different kind of sex products or lube. And so I think that those are great. I think that I would just be careful of anybody that's promising something that, I mean, we all know that there's very few solutions, and the solutions that there are the more effective ones.
Is there a a menopause starter kit. You get your fan, you get your magnesium for
I
sleeping.
know.
Like, what else is there? Like, do we need to take collagen? Do you need, like,
Oh,
what are the,
I
like,
like
you
collagen and
only need
protein.
four things.
Yeah, I like collagen and protein. I think protein is a big one. It's really that one's a tough one for me to try to get enough protein in my diet. And as the more research I did, the more I realized how important it was. And I don't eat meat, but I eat fish, and so that's helpful, but I still need more protein. And so that's been a big one. But I think magnesium would be, is my starter kit, a fan always. Make sure you have layers, something that is sleeveless all the time. Like I know. I know. And the only reason I have this shirt on right now is because I have my door open and it's chilly here, which is nice. My husband's like, it's freezing in this house. I was like, oh, it's wonderful in this house. I feel so good. I like to have a sleep mask too. And I think that, let me think what else I would put in that starter kit. I think I would make sure that I have something that also is helped me with mindfulness, because I think that I need to like calm myself down quite often. And I think that that's been very important for me. I'm not great at meditating, but I try the best I can. So, I listen to different kinds of music, or I do yoga. And so whatever area you have there for movement. Oh, and wrist weights. I like wrist weights. So I have those. Don't travel with them because you had stopped at the airport, which I learned on my last trip. But wrist weights are great if you're at home and you can walk with them. And then if you're on vacation, you find something else. But I think it's great to get out and walk.
Did you like ramp up cardio as opposed to like strength training, or is it like I
Opposite.
hear
Yeah,
there's
I did opposite. I did the strength training and I still do cardio. I like cardio, but I don't do what I used to do. I mean, I'm a Gen X girl. I used to get on the Stairmaster and sweat and make sure it's like, sweat all around me. And I'm like, okay, I succeeded. And now I'm strength training in the gym. I don't, I was in the time where it was like only the boys are in the weight room. And now I'm like, move aside. Here I am. And so now weight rooms are all women and I love it. I think the men are like, what is going on here? So I don't know, maybe they're on the treadmill now. But yeah, strength training is my thing. I love it. I do it 3+ times a week. I actually really enjoy it. And it
that's
protects
amazing.
your bone. Yeah, it's great.
Julia has a question. Julia Pimsler, over to you.
Yeah. Hi,
So
Julia.
so great to see you, Tamsen.
Great
You're
to see you.
amazing. I loved your book about post-divorce. So if anybody wants to read that one too, I'll put in a
Thank
plug for
you.
that. Can't wait to read this. And my question is about hormone replacement therapy. So
Yes.
I started taking, I'm in my mid 50s, went through
Yes.
menopause a while ago, and I can agree it gets worse and then it gets a lot better, right?
Yes.
And then it's like, I am who I am and I love it and whatever. I definitely don't miss having my period. So hooray for menopause.
Good.
Um, my
No,
question
especially if you
is,
have hard periods. Like, yeah, that is a plus.
right? Don't miss that at all. So take all that money you saved and spend it on collagen, which I do take
Yes.
in
Yes.
my smoothies. But my question is about hormone replacement therapy. So someone put me on it around the menopausal time, and then I
Yep.
started hearing like, oh, that can cause cancer, that has all these health risks, blah blah blah. So I went off it, and I recently went back on it, and now I'm just kind of like, am I juggling with my health? Is this bad? I can't find any information on it. Did that come up in your
Oh,
research?
yes, and there's a whole chapter on it in the book.
Oh,
If you're
fantastic.
dealing with a doctor that does not research this and has not looked into this, a lot of those fears came from the Women's Health Initiative, which was 20 plus years ago now, 2002, so 23 years ago now, and that was a initiative and a study that was done that was halted prematurely, that it really kind of put that into our heads that like estrogen causes breast cancer. Every researcher that I have talked to said that hormone therapy is the most effective way to treat menopause symptoms. And so, a lot of that information is outdated and misguided, and there was a lot of misinformation. There has been data that has come back out since to pull back on what those headlines were. So I would encourage you to read about that. We have some of it on the website and a lot of it in the book. But the Women's Health Initiative is what caused that scare. There are some people that are not eligible for or not able to take hormone therapy. If breast cancer, if you have a personal history of breast cancer, not a family, I have a family history and I am on hormone therapy. And then there's a couple of other contraindicators that would say you're not
I
eligible
see
for
what
hormone therapy. But I would really encourage you to find a doctor that can talk to you about that, because you should not be feeling that you're juggling with your health as a result.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Super
of
helpful. And for
course.
me,
Of
it's
course.
helped a lot. The other
Yeah,
big
I'm
thing
estrogen and progesterone, testosterone, and vaginal estrogens,
Oh, thank
Takes
you.
me a long time to get ready for bed.
I also think we can really do a service to younger women. I work with a lot of women in their 20s
Yes.
who do my social media and whatnot to just normalize that these things are going to happen to them. Like, again, no one talked to me about menopause, even though happily I do still have my mom, but that was not something you talked about until I eventually asked her about it. So I say to them on a regular basis, like, I'm going to go take a nap now because I'm in my mid
Yep.
50s and I'll be
Good,
back.
good,
And that's it.
good.
I'm not like embarrassed about it. And, I work from home sometimes from my office, but if I'm at home, that's one of
Yes.
my legacies of menopause is like I have to take like a 10 or 15-minute nap almost every day.
Yep.
And I've just tried to be gracious with myself about it because I did at first feel like, oh my God, like why can't I do all the things I used to do and go, go, go all day? And now I'm like, that's just it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I wish more women had talked to me about just what's normal to have happen in your 50s.
Well, and giving you permission to take that pause if you need it, to be
Yes.
aware of what's going on, to not feel shame by it, to not feel that, like being tired is a real thing. It's not it's not in your head. It's not because you didn't, when you're waking, when you have disruptive sleep, it can be really, really just debilitating. And it's one of the largest chapters in the book. And I had to trim it back too, but because I really do believe that is of critical importance, is focusing on that.
And speaking about, we have Lindsay Scola in the room who is a sleep expert and
Oh,
has
perfect.
sleep conversation in here.
Perfect.
But I've been wearing my Aura ring and
Yes.
it's been tracking my sleep and tracking my body temperature, but
Right.
it keeps telling me like we can't tell your fertility window. I'm like, I'm 52. Like, tell me about menopause. And it's not telling me
Yeah.
anything. It keeps serving me like how to track my natural cycles and track my fertility. I'm like, Aura ring. Get like is there anybody here speaking of? Is there
Well,
anybody
I
here?
think they're working on something. That's what I heard. That's
Go
what
I
get
I,
have
in there,
a
Tamsen.
upcoming
They need you.
conversation with their partnerships team.
who
You
said
are,
that?
I have an upcoming conversation with their partnerships team.
I would like to have, I would like to not be served about whether or not I'm going to get pregnant, is what I'm. I would like to be served some different information on. I love my Aura ring. I really am into sleep, but I would like them to get with the program with these
Yes.
Gen X
Good,
women
good, good.
and perimenopausal women. Um, uh, somebody just said they had a question. Hannah
Hi.
Rosenzweig.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Tamsen. Thank you so much. I joined a little late, so sorry if you already talked about this, but on the subject of HRT, one thing my doctor also said, and I wanted to see if this had come up in your research, was that it's really important actually to take HRT at some point within 10 years of menopause, also for heart health and for other organ health. Are you also finding that?
100%. And that's a great doctor. Long-term health. So it's not really the hot flashes and all the things that we're dealing with right now. When I'm looking at this, that is for the long-term health of brain, bone, and heart. And that's really the conversation that has kind of been left out. And we've talked about the fact like, oh, you can kind of get through the symptoms and tough it out and deal with it, and hormone therapy will help. But I hear a lot of women going like, how bad should my symptoms be before I start? Or what's bad enough? You shouldn't be suffering at all, first of all. So there shouldn't be any bad enough. But secondly, it's those long-term symptoms that you want, or long-term health ramifications that you want to be talking about. And cardio health has become really top of mind in a lot of these conversations. I interviewed Dr. Jane Morgan, a cardiologist out of Atlanta, and she talks all about it to understand the need for it if you can do estrogen or hormone therapy, and how it helps long term. Does that help?
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, of course.
I love how you really approached this book as a journalist, right? To like lean into who are the experts, to demystifying parts and give access to people who might not otherwise have access to the information. I think that's so um, generous and thoughtful and really the beginning of a movement in storytelling. Um,
Thank you all for being here for this today, because I just hope that like every time we have one of these conversations that somebody shares it and somebody shares it, because I think that that's how we normalize the words perimenopause. That's how we make sure that younger women don't feel afraid. That's how we make sure that we have the answers that we need for long-term health span. Because when you go into a doctor and you don't feel like the doctor's heard you, or you feel like you are asking for too much, or that, it's not that bad, that's not how we should be feeling, especially not during this time.
How can we help you, Tamsen? What can we do to help you spread the word, to help you get this book into the right hands? Are there, um, because we're in the list, I want to be able to really tap this network for you
Thank
and
you.
support.
Anything you can do. I mean, being here is like above what I could ask, first of all, because I know everybody's busy and I know everybody has 100 things going on. So I'm so appreciative. If you can share it with your network, if you can share it online, wherever you think that it would make the most impact, I would be so grateful. If you want to get a copy and give one for somebody else, please. I think it could make all the difference. And I want to bring men into the conversation at some point too. I really do, because I was at a book signing and a gentleman came up to me and said to me, when's too early for my daughter, or when's too like a good time for my daughters to learn about menopause? And I said, how old are they? And he said, they're 25 and 35. And I said, now, I said, especially the 35-year-old, but teach the 25-year-old. And he goes, I will. He goes, but I think that the men need to know too. So he got 2 books and he had me sign them to his daughters and their partners. And so he goes, because I'm going to make my son-in-laws read the book too. And I was like, you're the coolest. So he's on my Instagram right now, because I just thought it was I just thought it was great. So it wasn't just like the woman having to have all the information. I'm making my son-in-laws read this too. So anyway, I thought that was great. But I will take any suggestions, really, of how to get this out there. I really will, and do whatever it takes.
I'm leading that charge in my own home. I'm talking about menopause and I talk about periods with my daughter
Thank
and
you.
make sure that we're talking about periods and menopause with my son and my daughter, like for everybody. I'm working on doing my part from my end. I want to quickly, Allison Gilbert, who is also on the USA Today bestseller list with her book,
Congratulations.
which is here in my stack. Oh no, it's not my stack. It must be in my next to my bedside table. Um, uh, Allison says she's got a little idea about how to get the book into hands. Do you want to share, Allison, while we've got a captive audience?
I would love it.
Hold on, you're on mute.
I wasn't prepared to share it now, but the well, maybe I'll email you off list, but something that you said and Anne echoed, which I appreciate and wasn't expecting, is now obvious to me when it wasn't before, which is how this impacts community and togetherness. And our interest and enthusiasm for doing stuff that seems to be otherwise obviously fun, but if you're suffering with sleep or hot flashes, you may not want to engage as full-heartedly as before. And so it seems to me, in the little lane that I occupy now with talking about loneliness and all those things, it seems to be that there's an unobvious conversation to have about how menopause can actually have women retreat from their social lives. And so anyway, I'll email you if you're open to it offline. I have an idea.
But I would absolutely love it. And yes, that is exactly what happens. And I think, unfortunately, because of, how this has been societally, that there's a lot of shame that gets wrapped up in it. There's a lot of ageism, there's a lot of sex. It was all these things that are tied up into it. And not everybody feels comfortable having the conversation, like we're having here. So, and I understand that. And so that's why I'd like to also help the women that may not feel comfortable having the conversation, at least have the information.
I love that. And by the way, you and I have a mutual friend. I used to work at Channel 11 too, a long time ago, John Houseman.
Oh, yes, of course. He's wonderful.
So
He's
we will talk about that offline.
hired me.
I know.
You're
So
actually, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, that's it.
I just want to say, Tamsin, when I got sprung on you at the last minute and we said
Yes.
we were just going to talk, I'm actually looking at this room of humans who've gathered here for you. And there are a lot of community leaders here from all sorts of different corners. Julia Pimsler, obviously, who's running $1 Million Women. Carmen Neal is here, and she she launches a community called Fashion Family Finance in that, or is that right, Carmen? And she's starting with, I've led a couple of like her closet purges, which are so great because when you are like facing menopausal changes, like the clothes have to change too.
Yep. I have a
Um,
whole chapter on the clothes. People were like, why are you putting clothes in there? And I go, because it impacts every part of our life. And that's what I'm doing. I'm putting clothes and makeup and skin and hair and all those things because we have to stop acting like we're in a silo with this. So yeah. Oh, Carmen, I love that. That's great.
And then Lindsay's focused on sleep and building a community around sleep. And
Yeah.
Fabienne, who I have not met yet, but who I saw wants to have you come to the Elevate Network.
Oh,
Uh,
wonderful.
and Allison giving you support with her community building work around loneliness. I really feel like this is a great, rich place, and that you have planted a seed that we all want to help water and grow because you're leading such an important conversation, and that however we can bring our communities to support you, I want to do that for you and for all the women that you're
Really
going to
appreciate
reach. So thank you.
And I'm so sorry you got thrown in at the last minute, but I'm so happy because I felt like it was just an open conversation. And I think that that's really where it has to start. It's what I realized whenever I've gone to speak somewhere, whatever plans that we have, we kind of go off the topic and we go in the direction that it needs to go and it needs to breathe. And it's really special. It's really special. And every single conversation has been, I just really meaningful. And I think that when we share like this, it makes a big difference. I never understood the definition of community, really. I was like, I knew I had work friends or had some home, from friends like at home in my personal life, but I never really understood community. And until over the last 5 years, it has become everything to me, and it makes a big difference.
Can I say
Gen
something about
X.
your mom, Tamsin? I'm just
Huh?
thinking about your mom. I'm just thinking about your mom because, funny enough, I lost my father when he was 48, so very similar to the age at which you lost your mom. And I was just thinking, what an amazing job your mom did with you, that you have the confidence and the moxie to go out and be the poster child first for, oh, you just got divorced? Don't worry, we got this. I got divorced, and your book helped me a lot because that was another shameful place nobody likes to talk about. And now you're doing it again. You're like, menopause? No one wants to talk about that? That's all right. I'll be the poster child of that. So I thank you. We thank you. And I want to thank your mom. That dedication was so moving and beautiful. And I know she's smiling down right now. Maybe she sent us all here to help you. So I just feel really honored to be here with you. And Anne, that was a beautiful moderation. You always bring it. And just so proud to be part of this community at an event like this where we can raise our voices together. But you're out there in front. So thank you, Tamsin.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That means so much. Oh, Anna,
To send everybody back to their next meeting, but I appreciate you. We will follow up. Tamsin, I appreciate you and all the work you're doing. And thank you all for bringing your energy and your time here today.
thank you, everybody. I put my email there if anyone wants to reach out. I'm here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sending you luck and love.
Thank you. Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thanks.